Hey everybody! So, this is the last lesson of the unit, and we're finally learning what this means. Not the general this, the this. It's a keyword. So, this lesson should be completed by this Thursday, March 3rd, because all the Unit 5 lessons are going to lock on Friday, March 4th. The objective of this lesson is to evaluate object reference expressions that use the keyword this. So, within a non-static method or constructor, the keyword this is a reference to the current object. So this is the object whose method or constructor is being called. In simpler terms, this is used when your local variable has the same name as the instance variable. So remember in the last lesson, we learned about scope. And we were like, okay, well, the local variable is going to be prioritized when we're inside of methods and inside of constructors. Well, say you want to reference the instance variable. Instead of using different names, if you don't want to, you want to give it the same variable name, then you can reference the instance variable by using this. Okay, so this will signal to the current method or constructor that you're in that you are talking about the instance variable. Here's an example. We have this class BMX. There's a frame size and there's the number of pegs. But if you notice, the parameters have the same exact name, frame size and num pegs. So when we're initializing our instance variables, we use this. So we know the difference between what our instance variables are and what our parameters are. So here we're setting our instance variables frame size and number of pegs to the value of the parameters that have the same name, frame size and number of pegs, right? In previous lessons, you've had to either call this F or FS and this N or NP, just so that they had different names. But if you don't want to use different names, then this takes care of that situation for you. Here's another way that the this keyword can be used. It can be used to pass the current object as an actual parameter in a method call. So if you notice here, we have public class rectangle. And then we have two methods in our rectangle class. We have the getArea, which takes a rectangle object as its parameter. And then we also have hasGreaterArea, which takes a different rectangle object as its parameter. Notice inside the hasGreaterArea method, it's going to return the getArea method of this. So when you see something like this, think about in the main tester method, right? You're going to have a rectangle object. And that object is what this is referring to. You can use a different rectangle object then to compare which one has the greater area. So for example, if you had a rectangle object in your main method and you called it rectangle1. So when you call this hasGreaterArea method, you would be like rectangle1 dot hasGreaterArea. But you'd have to put something in the parentheses. So you have another rectangle object called rectangle2. So it would be rectangle1 dot hasGreaterArea, and in the parentheses would be rectangle2. So when this getArea is called with the keyword this inside the parentheses, this is referring to that rectangle1. And other rectangle would be referring to rectangle2. Here's another example. If we have this class called pet, and we have our instance variable called name and a parameter called name, then we would use this dot name equals name to initialize name. But suppose the this wasn't here and the constructor only had name equals name. Well, that means that the object that was created of the pet class would have an empty string as the name of the pet, because in that case, the instance variable was never initialized. So in order to make sure that our instance variable is initialized, we have to use this dot name because these have the same variable names. If they were different names, we wouldn't have to worry about using this because the initialization of the instance variable would happen. But they have the same name, so we have to use this in order to ensure that our instance variable is being initialized. So here's a little test for yourself. Assume we have this class called test. Then we have two instance variables, number 1 and number 2. Here's our constructor for the test class. We have two parameters, number 1, notice that's the same name as the instance variable. And then we also have num2, that's not the same name. So we just have number 1 equals number 1. Hint, think about what we just said in the last slide. And then you have this dot number 2 equals num2. So if we had this object A of the test class and we initialized it with values 19 and 15, what would be the actual values of the instance variables number 1 and number 2 after this? And that's all for lesson 5.9. I hope that you learned a lot and that you have a good day.